Hey, it's me. It's Johnny D, the Motivational Cowboy, with this week's Outstanding Life podcast. And I hope you are enjoying all of our podcasts. And don't forget, you can listen now on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud, and Player FM. And don't forget, you can also make donations at PayPal and support on Patreon. And I am so excited about today's podcast. You are going to love this one. I am with a great friend of mine that I met many, many years ago. And he is one of the coolest entrepreneurs I have ever met in my life. And today we are sitting here with Steve Perkins. What is going on, young man?
Well, thank you, Johnny D, for having me. How are you doing?
Man, I am doing outstanding. Well, you know what? What's really cool is we have your son here too. Justin, what's happening?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Now, you guys are brand new to the whole podcast thing too, right?
Absolutely. Yep. First time with a microphone in my face.
So, Justin, we're going to have having some fun with your dad. So I guess that we are going to co-host this and have some fun with your dad. Steve, you know, I want to get right into this. And where are you from? Like, where were you born, raised?
Well, I was born in Fort Worth, Texas, but be quite honest with you, I lived all across the United States of America. I had the great honor of having a father who was hired by Chevrolet Motor Division when I was a year old and transferred 13 times.
Wow.
As he was being promoted. And that wasn't all to 13 different states. It was to 9 different states with 13 promotions, or 13 transfers, I should say. So learned a lot, living all across the country, met a lot of fun, cool people growing up. And I was fortunate, too, that my dad's friends were my friends.
Okay. So you started off in Texas. How long were you in Texas for?
I was there until the old age of 5 years old, and then from there transferred to Detroit, Michigan, which was quite a shock even for a 5-year-old. Yeah,
I didn't know you were from that you lived in Michigan for a while.
I lived in Michigan 3 different times for a while.
No kidding.
Honest to gosh, yeah. My last time there, though, I helped unload the truck that moved us up there. And I turned right around and got back in the truck and went with the truck driver. And that was the end of my last time I moved to Michigan to stay. I was 19 years old and said, I've had enough.
Now, was it the winters that you didn't like, or?
I think it was the winters. Yeah, I don't know. I never have enjoyed real cold weather. But, no, I just wanted to get out on my own. I just like being my own guy.
Yeah. So, Steve, I mean, I look at you now, and you are a very successful businessman. I have to ask, though, what was your very first job?
My very first job that you could call a real job, a paid job, was at being an extractor of honey at a bee plant, which was me and 2 other of my friends locked up in a room at about 110 degrees in El Cajon, California. During the summertime, and we weren't even allowed to taste the honey. We had to take the honey out of the hive and extract it from the hive.
How much money did you make back then?
$3.10 an hour is what we were getting paid. Yep.
Was that worth all the stings?
No, sir. I got stung.
That's great.
I got stung probably a minimum of 6 times up to about 12 to 15 times a day.
No
kidding. Because I learned a dead bee can sting you just as much as a live bee if you touch it.
Wait a second. I thought that they have those suits, though. You have the hats, all that gear on and everything else, and they could still get in?
No, we didn't wear any of that kind of stuff. We had T-shirts and jeans. And we were, they'd already smoked the bees, put them to sleep, as they call it.
Yeah.
But so there was live bees flying around the room. But the dead bees that were in the hive that, they would sting you as well if you touched the stinger. So a quick funny on that is that I was going out on a date, a brand new girl I just met, and I really, really liked her. She's hot. And at least I thought. And that very afternoon before the date, I was stung in the lip and stung on that back of my hand.
And Kylie Jenner.
Yeah.
Right.
My hand swelled up to look like a softball. Because I had been stung so many times there, I guess it became an allergic reaction. But in my lip, it swelled up to be the biggest bongo-looking lip you've ever seen in your life. This thing was just flopping in the wind,
Wait, what do they call that now? That's something you
the
put
bottle challenge or whatever.
No, the stuff you put in your lips.
like a plate or something,
I don't know what it is, but yeah,
injections.
And you were only 16 years old at that time?
Oh yeah. So
Botox.
I show up at her door. And I didn't think she liked me a whole lot anyway. I was just lucky enough to get a date with this chick. and I think she just looked at me and goes, I think we better schedule for another night. That was it.
So how long did you do the whole bee thing?
Oh, it's just a summer job that particular summer. And then, so my next job after that, though, I worked at a drive-through service, like grocery store.
Okay.
A convenience store that you drive through, get milk and bread and bacon and eggs and candy. And
it was a drive-through?
Yeah, this thing was crazy, man. You'd pull into this thing, and it was lined with a refrigeration unit. You're a one-man band in there. Here I am, about 16 and a half. And these old people pull in their cars, and they didn't get out. Give me a gallon of milk, a pound of bacon, some of that honey baked ham over there, lily white bread, just whatever, have a whole list of whole like a grocery bag,
Right.
And I'm trying to keep track of this in my head because if you didn't go fast, I got mad at you. So I'm picking all the groceries and putting it in their car, and then have to go ring it all up.
I think that was way ahead of its time.
Oh yeah, way ahead. They even sold gas, so you could get gas then drive in.
Wow.
And
did they sell alcohol?
No, we didn't sell beer.
That's only in Texas.
Yeah.
So listen,
Texas would have been legal.
So you're 17 years old, almost 17 years old, 17 years old at that time. Were you good in school? Were you like one of those smart kids?
No, I hated school every second of it.
Really?
I dreamt of getting out of school every day the minute before I left to go there.
Okay.
So I tell you how much I didn't like school to start with, how my whole career started in school. My mother took me to kindergarten, and I was walking fine until I got to the door of that classroom, and I braced myself in the door, hands on the entry or on the
door frame,
and my feet on the door frame on the bottom side, pushing while the teacher was pulling and my mother was pushing, trying to get me in the classroom door. And I didn't like it from that day on. So,
Justin, you are the son, and were you good in school? Did you love school? Were you just the opposite?
I did. I really did enjoy it, and we have quite a bit of opposites. Him and I.
So you take after your mom then?
Well, I guess
more studious,
more
pays attention.
And
if the rule says this, they follow it. Me, I see the rule and I go the other direction.
That's right. Yeah, so it's a good balance. It's a good mixture between him and I. And we definitely pull out strengths, and we definitely can poke holes in our weaknesses too.
Yeah, no, that's great. So you go, you do that for a little while, and then you finish school, high school, and then what'd you start doing?
Well, and hold on, you got to remember he moved all during this time, so you have to.
That's true. We have to start asking him where.
I mean, he went to high school probably in four different high schools.
Wow.
And so just imagine growing up trying to go to different high schools all throughout the years and everything else. And
Justin, did you just see him? He's like, no, actually it was 5. He was like counting in his head 5 different times.
Yeah, I went to 5 high schools. We moved to this one city, and it was in Northern California, and there was a new high school getting built on the opposite side of the city. So I happened to be on that side of the fence, so it made it worse because I had to go over here, could make friends because I knew I wasn't going to be there.
Right.
And they moved me over to the other place, which then became a half grade type thing where we dropped a grade, added a grade. So anyway, what the rough part there was, this is where I learned to run though, because I had played sports all through. Now I love sports, and I played sports all through school. And I went to school for the sports and for wood shop, metal shop, college shop. That's what I loved.
Right.
If I could stay there, I'd been a straight A student, perfect college scholarship. But instead I had to do those other classes, which I just died at those. But not that I couldn't do it, I just hated it.
Right. Yeah.
It made sense to me because I wanted to be a worker. I wanted to run something. I wanted to do something. I wanted to build something. I wanted to work on stuff. So the thing that killed me was I'm sitting there thinking, this is useless knowledge. So everything they're trying to give me, it may benefit this guy, but it ain't going to benefit me.
Right.
Because I already had my mindset what I was going to do. That was be in the automobile world, right? So that was pretty well predetermined.
So you wanted to do exactly what your dad was doing?
More or less, yeah. I mean, I did want to follow his footsteps. I mean, that was my big goal as a young kid. I traveled with my dad a lot growing up when he was in the field with Chevrolet Motor Division.
Yeah.
And how old was my grandfather, your dad, when you were born?
Oh, he was only 22, 23 years old.
Yeah, so he was growing up too.
Yeah, he grew up.
He was young. That's how old I was when I had my daughter.
Well, I was the same age as well.
Yeah.
But a funny story with that though that Justin brings up is that my dad, every time he would introduce me to somebody as I became an adult, that Steve and I grew up together. He said, this Steve, my son, we grew up together.
Well, and it makes me think, though, the fact that he's moving constantly and adjusting to new lifestyles, and different cultures across the country, and also my dad is moving with him, and those two had to be almost best friends, because you think about it, like, you're constantly with new people, or you're leaving people behind, trying to meet new people, but your constant is your family moving with you. And so those two probably did a lot together.
Right. So do you think that you had to grow up fast?
Absolutely. That was my goal, was to grow up fast. I mean, I couldn't get old fast enough, I mean, and I think there's a lot of young kids, some feel that way as well, that are in some situations, maybe something similar to the situation that I grew up in. I'm not saying that anything was wrong. I had a great life.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
Had, stuff everywhere. My dad was mechanically inclined. We built cars together at a young age.
Yeah.
He did that to make a little extra money. I dreamt of all that. I mean, I would lay awake at night thinking about the car we're building.
Right.
And I'll never forget the first things. Now, I was very studious when it came to reading Hot Rod Magazine. And those kind of things. So I was really good at that. I could remember, all the timing settings and dwell settings for points and, torque.
So it wasn't just the
torque
pictures?
on nuts and bolts. No, it wasn't just pictures. I studied all that stuff. I was building my first engines, V8 motors at 14.
Wow.
In the garage.
With your dad?
Actually, he made me learn the hard way, and he came out and saved me after he was done. But he had a wrecking yard engine, said, "Here, do it."
Wow.
And so, and I'd already had motorcycles and mini bikes and go-karts and all that stuff growing up. So I was mechanical.
Right.
But I had no idea you're supposed to mark all that stuff when you take it apart, like the rod bearing caps and the main bearing caps and what pistons went in which hole, if it's a used motor. And so I just took it all apart and scattered it all over the floor, And so he walks out, he goes, "Uh-oh, you made a mess right there." So, we had to figure it all out. We made it work.
Steve, you told me a story earlier. We were walking around your new man cave, which is pretty awesome. But you told me a story about you driving Corvettes at the age of 16 years old, or maybe you were 17. Tell the listeners about that story, about how you had to wake up in the middle of the night and drive these cars from place to place.
Actually, I was quite a bit younger than that. I was in the 6th grade.
You were in 6th grade.
Yeah.
You weren't even old enough to drive yet.
I wasn't driving now. I was riding. So,
okay, you were riding.
Now, my first driving, though, is cars I snuck out that my dad didn't know.
Well, that's
and
one
that
of the
was
questions.
At the age of 14. And I rolled 2 of them over by the time I was 16. That he never had proof that I did it, because I had it fixed up pretty good before he got home. It was in the dirt, but that's a different story itself. So what we did was, when it was 69.5, the Chevrolet came out with a new Camaro and new Corvette body, but primarily the Corvette is the C3.
Mm-hmm.
So the C3 lasted until about 1970. I want to say 75, maybe 76. I could be wrong. So all you Corvette people out there, don't go challenge me on that. I don't have, my memory's good, but it ain't that great. So, but these cars had all aluminum big blocks in them and things like that, a lot of different options that they hadn't had before for Corvette. So they went from basically 350 small block motors to big blocks. And that was the era where we had the kind of a slope back Corvette. And so to keep the public from seeing that car, because it was a big deal, John DeLorean was running the car company at the time. And a lot of us people out there may know who John DeLorean is, but he was definitely a cat character with his own right.
Right.
So we flew, or General Motors flew those cars in the dark of the night in cargo planes in crates. And we uncrated them at LAX and drove them out to what was the Ontario Motor Speedway under construction at the time. And so those cars were tested all week out there. We had about 50 cars total. And so they were driven with all different types of ratios, some with automatic, some with 4-speed manual transmission, some with big block, some with small block. So the idea behind it was that to run these cars as hard as we could, or at least I say we. I was a passenger,
right?
But it was the best ride I ever had in my life. The 24 hours a day getting ready for the world press, literally the world press.
And you said there was going to be like 400 or 500 different people from the press out there, right, from all over the world.
Yeah, there's roughly 400, maybe close to 500.
Yeah.
And this was a big, huge deal. So half the speedway was finished, but the road course half was done. The road course was done. So we would run that road course, and I think they destroyed one car by crash, and it rolled it over about 3 times on side to side. Then they tore up 2 transmissions, if I recall, blew 3 engines, and tore up 1 rear end. So altogether, it wasn't a bad week.
Right.
So the idea was to get these cars prepared so that everybody could thrash them, because we knew the press would just thrash them.
Right.
And we didn't need any bad press. And again, my involvement with my dad was so thick, I felt like I was actually, doing this thing myself. Yeah. He took me out of school actually for the entire week.
Wow.
And didn't care, I mean, what teachers and everybody would think today, because he wanted me out there with him, to enjoy all that.
That's cool.
So we drove these cars like hell, and then and got them all ready, polished them up, touched up the wheels where they're all scratched up, and that was a magnesium wheel, they called it, magnesium paint back then. Kind of a brownish, grayish tone to it. And so we get ready for the main day, and here comes a helicopter.
You never seen a helicopter that close before, have you?
No, I've seen it in the air way up, but I had never seen one, right there. So here it comes hovering in there. It's a big helicopter.
Yeah.
And that thing's roaring, dirt flying, everything, and steps out as John DeLorean, the king, done stepped out, as a 6th grade boy
that loves cars, you knew exactly who he was.
I knew exactly who John DeLorean is, because how my dad, always was acting anyway around, and talking about, John DeLorean and the higher-ups at Chevrolet, with never the thought he would run Chevrolet one day. He was zone service manager of L.A. Zone at the time.
Okay.
Back then, there were 23 zone offices across the country and the 12 regional offices. So that was a big deal. There was 30,000 roughly white-collar workers.
Wow.
That worked in the GM category. Yeah. Most of them with Chevrolet. So there were field reps everywhere. There were service reps. So here comes DeLorean. My dad tells me to don't step out of line, to stay quiet, because he knew I might run somewhere, So here he comes down the procession line. I guess that's what you would call it. We're greeting everybody, and we had a rope off, velvet type ropes. It was rope actually, but here comes Mr. DeLorean shaking hands with everybody. Hi, how you doing? How you doing? Look like the President of the United States, coming across there, and quickly and so this whole deal was made up to be, surrounded around this just gigantic thing, and it was.
Yeah. So
DeLorean walks by, and he stops, takes a double look, sees me standing back there, a little kid, but, nobody, no little kids there but me. It is 99% men. There were very few women in that business at that time.
Yeah.
So he says, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm Steve Perkins." The old big eye. I'm like, "Oh shit, I'm in trouble." So I said, "I'm my dad's Jim Perkins. He works on these cars, or something like that." He said, "Well, good to have you here." He said, "What did you do? What did you do here? Or what are you doing?" And I said, "I actually painted all the wheels of the post." So he got a kick out of that, because all the line that held that rope off.
Yeah.
My dad, that was my task, was out there, 3 days before, start painting wheels and post.
Right.
That was going to make that. So
That's pretty cool.
We actually used a car wheel. It welded a post in the middle, which I didn't do the welding.
Right.
But I did the painting. The funny part about it today, we're in California at the time, so you got OSHA rules, you got these teenage law rules, you got little bitty kid law rules,
right.
Unpaid kid labor, and I'm out here with no mask, no nothing, with a full blown air sprayer, not a paint can, a whole friggin' thing, you know. Painting with real car paint. This stuff's got to blow back on me. And I'm covered in paint.
So, Steve, did you ever make it into the car business like your dad?
I did.
What did you start out doing?
Well, after I got through that drive-through grocery store job and the bee deal, we actually were California at the time. We were transferred to Dallas, Texas, and on the Dallas North Freeway was a dealership called Late Chevrolet. And Frank Late owned it. Frank Late was a very, very wealthy man, owned all kinds of other business besides that, several dealerships as well. You're talking, I'm 62 now, and I was 16 or 17 years old then. And so, to be a guy that owns 6 dealerships, he was one of the first mega dealers, if you want to call him that, to what would become later, like the dealers we have today that own hundreds of dealerships, or, not hundreds, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So they hired me, and I actually took a reduction in pay to get a car dealership job. And because we weren't in California anymore, his cost of living was less. So, it was all safe. So I was paid $2.10 an hour. And I would go there after school and I would clean the showroom floor.
Right.
Their showroom floor there was huge. And so my job, and you could smoke then, in the building. So people smoking on the showroom floor, smoking in the closing offices, smoking in the sales office, smoking everywhere, had ashtrays all in the, showroom. And the showroom held 22 cars. And it was terrazzo, the floor was. So my job was to go in there and clean all the windshields, clean all the glass, clean the fingerprints off the car, dump the ashtrays, clean the handprints on the doors, do all this stuff. And
you're a porter then?
Yes, I was good at it. I worked hard at it because this is my first opportunity.
Yeah,
and I really wanted to move on to be a make ready guy. Is what I wanted to be, but I didn't realize I had to take a couple steps first. So I got in there and did that, and but one quick into that. So I asked Mr. Lake, or I asked the sales manager one evening, I said, you think I could get a raise? I said, I've been here for half a year and I think I'm doing pretty good. Y'all pay me $2.10 an hour. He said, well, what do you think you ought to be paid? I said, at least a quarter more, Yeah. And he says, well, I've taken up Mr. Lake. And so one afternoon, about a week later, Mr. Lake shows up. And so I get paged to Mr. Lake's office. Well, obviously he knew who I was because of my dad.
Yeah.
My dad was zone manager at the time of the Dallas zone. So, but Mr. Lake was a hard ass. Real hard. And matter of fact, I tell you how hard he is. A friend of his who I knew very well as a young kid was a car dealer as well, Al Graff, in Graff Chevrolet in Grapevine, Texas. Mm-hmm. And he'd tell him all the time. He said, Frank, you so mean. He said, you have to hire pallbearers to take care of you off. So, I'm serious. So he looks at me, he says, why would I give you a quarter an hour raise? And I said, well, because I deserve it. I said, I work hard. I'm here every day right after school. I spend my home days. I stay here till 8 o'clock at night. You close at 9, I stay till 8. And he said, well, why don't you stay till 9? I said, because you're not going to pay me after 8. They told me that when you hired me, or when the guys hired me. He said, well, I tell you what. He said, you give me one more good reason why I should pay you more extra money. I said, because if you don't, I got a better job down the street at Stakely Chevrolet.
Did he give it to you?
Yeah, he looked at me, he says, that takes some, for a 17-year-old to say that to me. And I said, it is what it is. Bottom line, I still went to Stakely, though, a month later.
No kidding.
Yeah, I became a mechanic's helper there.
So what was your final job working in the automotive business?
As a general manager and a part owner of 2 different dealerships.
No kidding.
Yeah, I was 30 years old.
Wow.
When I got that, I went from being a lot boy at 17 to a part owner by the time of 30.
It kind of reminds me of the story of your dad when he first got hired in with Chevrolet. And I read the story about your dad would sit out in the lobby and ask and try to talk to everybody who walked out.
Yeah.
Tell that story the way that you know it.
Well, the way, and I've heard it firsthand from the receptionist because she became our good friend.
Oh, really?
Family friends later. Yeah,
okay.
Maureen Lowry and her husband was Bruce Lowry, and Bruce Lowry owned a Chevrolet dealership in outside of Fort Worth in Arlington. So, and Randy Shapiro is a good friend of mine who was her son.
Okay.
So the reason the last names are different because Randy's father, her original husband, died when Randy was just a baby.
Gotcha.
So she met Bruce and they married. So my dad he was working for Firestone at the time and hated it and never wanted to work for Firestone. He liked Goodyear better. But anyway, but it was a quick job he could get out of the Navy, and I was just born, so he needed to make sure I got fed in diapers.
Yeah.
And so he would go to Chevrolet Motor Division's zone office in Dallas every day at lunch and sit there. Well, everybody'd file out, they'd file back in, and nobody'd ever talk to him. And he went there for a month. Every day he spent his lunch. And
wouldn't he pack his lunch and bring it in like a paper sack?
Yeah, he'd bring his paper sack lunch. And so Maureen Lowry would just sit there and, talk to him and, say, baby, she talked like that. She's a Texas gal, baby, I hope everything will work out for you. Baby, one of these days he's got to do it. So finally Maureen intervened and said, talk to Don Jones. She said, would you please talk to this young man? He sits here every day, you know, and you just at least got to talk to him. So they brought him in. Well, they liked him and they hired him. And my brother is actually named, his middle name is after the man who hired my dad.
Wow.
Chevrolet was Donovan Jones. So Patrick's Patrick Donovan Perkins. But anyway, I regress.
That's cool.
The cool part about that at the end was that Dad was hired in there at the lowest level that there was possibly available in Chevrolet Motor Division. That was a material return clerk at a scrap warranty parts that they wanted to review a little further beyond field review. And so they would send him in. He would look at it and see if the part was actually a failure part or if it matched up even to that car by timestamp or whatever the case may be. So he did that well. He's promoted pretty quickly. And that's when we went on to Detroit.
Yeah.
And in Detroit, he excelled really fast and several promotions there. The interesting part of that story at the end, though, is that when we returned to Dallas, Texas, he was brought back as the zone manager. So he left there at the lowest level and he came back at the highest level.
Wow.
And those people that were there that wouldn't talk to him, or they didn't talk to him because of being mean.
Right, yeah.
They just didn't have any reason to talk to him at the time. They didn't have a spot, you know. So those people were still there all those years later.
Wow.
Now I went from being born there and moving away from there at the age of roughly 4 years old and returning there at the age of 17. So 17 years later is whenever he was promoted high enough over the years, because we were in California for several promotions, you know, when we went up and down the state. So anyway, bottom line is that came back as zone manager, and all those guys who again filed past him in and out every day for lunch, now they were all working under him.
That's pretty cool.
And he loved every one of them.
Yeah.
There wasn't anybody that was a problem.
What was your dad like?
Oh, my dad was, I don't know.
They called him the cowboy, right?
Yeah, the fixer.
The fixer.
Yeah, he could fix it.
I've heard other things, but
Yeah. Justin may have his own opinion of some of it. No, him and Justin had a relationship and a half,
We
too.
had a
Justin's
great
initials are the
relationship.
same as his. So it was JCP Dad and JCP
I'm JCP2.
2.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's his granddaughter, Julia, and then
Well, Julia is my cousin, and then my son is a JCP.
and JCP. So we got all these JCPs.
Wow.
So he was proud of to call everybody JCP 2, JCP 3,
Yeah.
JCP 4. You know.
Yes. Yeah, he would always address me as JCP2. And like emails and stuff he would send me, JCP2.
But his heart was huge. But I just tell you, growing up though, you know, I was like anybody who's challenged and worked hard. And the one reason he was promoted the way he was, it wasn't because of his overly educated, you know, situation or he had so much experience or whatever. He was very, very personable. People loved being around him. They loved hearing him speak. He was a great speaker. He was acknowledged to everybody by name. He spent a lot of time doing whatever it is that they were doing. In other words, if you went to a car show, while everybody else would, you know, come in and leave, and I'm gonna say it right now.
Yeah.
You know, there's corporate executives out there that I've witnessed that roll in, look around, and take off and act like they did their job, and now they're going to go entertain or be entertained or whatever the case is. And I hope I don't get fired for that, saying that tonight by somebody else. But the point is that he stayed. He would go to an event and he would stay there and shake every last hand and would be one of the last people to leave every night. And he listened to every customer they had too, and he invited that. Whereas a lot of people are scared of their own customers,
Right.
Because you know, a lot of times it's a little bit of negative feedback. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, yeah, and to validate that, we saw it firsthand. At least I saw it firsthand at his funeral. You know, we had people coming up left and right that just shook his hand at a Corvette club meeting or something, and you know, I heard multiple stories of people being invited to the club meeting and didn't really know what they were doing, and then this gentleman would come over, greet him, and say, "Hey, how you doing?" And it would invite him to sit down at the table with him.
Right.
And then the guy would invest his time and everything else, and the people would not know who they were talking about, and later figure out that was Jim Perkins.
Right.
And they would be like, holy moly, Jim Perkins. Like, I had no idea that's who I was talking to,
right.
you know? And it's like, I might have changed my story a little bit if I knew I was talking to Jim. But I also heard, though, his nickname was the Hammer, too. In some situations, because he was a great personal man. I mean, he invested in you and in your life and getting to know who you were, but he also had the strong side of him too, the strong business side of him, of having to make tough decisions, make tough calls, and also enforce and lay down certain rules and laws and everything else when running a business.
Guys, one thing that it seems like everything I read, would you say that he was motivational, inspirational?
Well, just pull up some of his YouTube videos. I mean, there's one out there of him public speaking. I mean, I think he's probably one of the best public speakers.
Well, and that's what I mean. It's
that's
like
one of the unknown ones, you know?
Yeah, it's like he cared about everybody. He'd look you in the eye, shake your hand. Steve, you told me a story earlier about him handwriting letters to people that he met.
One of the things he was famous for was handwriting notes to people that he had met or had talked to him about one thing or another. And these would be casual acquaintance. And the guy, as a matter of fact, an interesting quick story with that. So about a month ago, maybe a little bit, maybe 6 weeks ago, there was a special event held in North Carolina by Bloomington Gold. And it was held at the Rick Hendrick complex for the race teams and such as that. Beautiful, huge complex. So Rick was kind enough to open that up to everybody. And so they get to go through the museum and they get to see the team center and they get to tour a lot of stuff. 1,500 Corvettes there to look at.
Wow.
And from a lot of other places besides just the Charlotte, area, obviously. So there's people in Virginia, Washington, I mean, all of them down the Eastern Seaboard. And so they've renamed that to be the Perkins event now, Perkins Bloomington Gold annual event held at Hendrick. This was the 8th year that they had done it. So this was the first year for us. So they invited us, and we'll be invited each year, and very nice to be remembered that way, or him being remembered. They created a plaque, a beautiful plaque, to give to the Perkins Family Award. So what we do is we chose a car out of all those cars that wasn't necessarily from a graded perspective. It was from just what we liked quality-wise. Well, my sister, I kicked her out real fast because she's like, well, I just like that one. I like that one. Well, y'all don't even know what you're looking at, because they had new cars and old cars, so and everything in the middle. So I was trying to look more for a quality, nice car that you'd want to own, besides a brand new Corvette. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to own a brand new Corvette, just about. So, and then obviously everybody thinks about the 50s, 53, 54, 55s, all that. So the 60s are great cars. So we came across this 63 Corvette that was absolutely gorgeous car. It's painted, it's called Daytona Blue, I believe it's called. And it had tan leather interior, which was the only color they offered in that era. So we picked that car. Well, lo and behold, we had no idea. Lo and behold, my dad had met this guy at a dry cleaner in Charlotte, North Carolina.
No kidding.
Yeah, my dad was picking his dry cleaning, and the guy started talking to him, and he talked about his Corvette. Dad hadn't seen his Corvette, but he was telling about his Corvette.
Yeah.
Well, Dad showed interest in him like he did everybody. And, sometimes these cars aren't what people, some people cars think they're real cool car, but you get a hold of it going, yeah, okay, that's all right. It's not they ain't quite all together.
Right.
But, and I've seen a lot of that in my lifetime, trust me. Thank you, Beacom Auto Auction and Barrett Jackson. Everybody thinks their car's worth $100,000. So anyway, the guy meets. Well, my dad hand wrote him one of his famous notes about, hey, nice to meet you, this and that, and if you ever need anything, here's my card. I mean, just one of those things.
Yeah.
Well, it impressed this guy so much that he started doing that to everybody. He knew this guy's a business owner, and I guess he owns 4 or 5 different businesses of one kind or another. Mm-hmm. So he deals with a lot of different people and on and off and whatever it is that he does with these businesses. So he handwrites these notes. Well, he told us that after he won the award. He had no idea that he was getting this award.
Right.
So we name it, we call out thing. He goes, hey, it's me, comes up. So he tells this story that I'm telling you now on stage to all these people.
Wow.
Out there, how he met Jim Perkins, so on and so forth. Well, I'm thinking, well, this is crazy as crap. That looks like we rigged this thing, that we already knew this guy.
Yeah.
But we had never met him in our life. So anyway, that's cool.
Now, what's one thing that you took away from your dad that you're still doing today? Like, because you're a businessman, you have people, people, but what's one thing that you learned from your dad a long time ago that you are still doing today?
Just be a person of integrity, be honest, stand up and do your job, do it the best you can every day, put forth everything you have in it. You never tell yourself that you're wrong. That you've got to do this differently or you're not, or I'm saying that incorrectly, that you've chosen the wrong path. That's the path you made, that's the path you chose. And I'm talking about business world. I'm not talking about, life situation.
Right.
Where you might choose the wrong path. And when I say the right path, if you know it's the right path and you know it's the right way to go because you've had that experience, then stay after it and it'll work for you. But you got to create excitement, enthusiasm, with your employees. Your employees have to be on your team. So that one of the most important things as well that he told me was your people. Obviously, we've heard that a lot out of a lot of people over the years about people.
Yeah.
But you know what? You can talk that talk, but you got to walk that walk.
Yep.
And the way you walk that walk is you get out there and be personal with those people every day.
Yeah.
And then, come in, sit down in your office, when I was prior to Justin, I was in there every morning, one of the first ones here. And I would meet and greet everybody in this building. I'd know what their kids were playing baseball or, doing a dance contest or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And you also want to make sure that you are involved in their family life to the level they'll allow you, meaning, if they need help, help them.
Yeah.
Make that known that you're available. And as an example, they need a tire, get them a tire.
Mm-hmm.
Need a battery, get them a battery.
Right.
You can't expect employees to always have maybe the privileged life that maybe you get to have maybe as an owner of a business. And I know as an employee myself for a lot of years that, you look up at the owner and think, wow, they've got everything. But the truth is they may not. They're struggling to a degree like you.
Yep.
But they're smart enough to not let the public see that or your employees see that. So my point with that is that it's like the happy wife, happy life thing.
Right.
Well, happy employees makes a happy company.
Right.
And so the happier they are, the better your company is. They're going to fight for you. They're going to fight with you. They'll get on that path and they'll ride with you on that path.
I've seen it today. Just coming in today. I think that we went around this place 3 different times since I've been here with you.
Yeah.
And you talked and introduced me to everybody. You knew what was going on in their life.
Yeah.
And then one thing I thought it was cool is you cook for your employees at least once a month.
We try. There's we're going to cook more often now. Years ago when I was in, I here lately I've had a little bit of a back issue, so that kind of slowed me down.
But still, just
but prior to that,
how many business owners do that? That's
what
I'm
we
saying.
enjoy it. And something I love cooking.
Right.
So
absolutely.
Justin
He cooks pretty good too.
So I make sure I get all the cool cooking equipment. But they, what's funny is they love my fried catfish. So I do fried catfish, hush puppies, and white beans and all this stuff, and they just go crazy. So we cooked it. Funny story about that. We cooked this one time, first time ever, right? And that stuff is delicious. I'll just tell you, it's delicious. Everybody, oh my God, Rita. So one particular employee of mine was so overwhelmed, I guess, or I don't know if that's the right word, with how good that fish was. The next time I cooked it, he was the first one in there, and he had this big old pile of plate full of fish. Stacked, full of fish. I look around and said, Ron. Oh, I should have said his name. That's bad.
It doesn't matter. No one else.
No last name.
We'll refer to him as Ron then from here on. I said, you can't possibly eat that much fish. He said, oh, I probably can. I said, Ron, we got 20 other people here behind you want to eat that fish. I said, if any left over, you take it. So it's funny, though, because it's like having to talk to your kid, tell him he put his fish back.
Steve, you go from owning dealerships to one day saying, I'm going to quit all that and start Cruisin Sports. What were you thinking? What were you thinking when, you had a great life and then all of a sudden you stopped that to do something else That had to have been a big change in your life.
Well, quite honestly, it was huge because I never intended to be out of the car business. I still feel like we're in the car business.
Well, you are.
Car merchandise,
Yeah.
But yes, the day-to-day of retailing cars, wholesaling cars, mechanics, so on, I missed that greatly at one point. I don't do it now.
Right.
I only look back and think, what if?
So what were you thinking? I mean, did you go home and tell your wife, hey, listen, honey, guess what?
Nope.
I quit and we're going to start a business.
I was real bad about not saying anything. Actually, it wasn't right away on starting the business. So I was promoted up to become the general manager of those dealerships, vice president, part owner, so on and so forth. And just something got into me one day that I said, you know what? I was young. At that point, I was 31. That was another thing. I was too young to be in those positions.
Right.
I was way too young. I'll just tell everybody that. I was too young to be the service manager at 24 years old, a big Chevrolet dealership, big one. I was too young to be a used car. I was too young to be a salesman. I was too young. All of them.
But were you good at them?
You think your name carried that weight, though?
My name carried a lot of weight. And I was good, though. I did have talent. But the problem is I wasn't mature enough to handle,
And you think you just threw out hey, there's an open job, I'm going to apply for it. And people saw it and they were like, oh, shoot, it's Perkins. So, I don't know. He might stand out a little bit more.
Our family name was well known. I mean, my dad today, at this point in time, he's a true icon.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. And I mean, he rates right there with the highest of the high with Iacocca, Shelby, all those kind of
absolutely.
people. And I mean, he may not be a household name that they were, but if you look at the history, you'll find his history is stronger, as strong as all them. You know?
Yeah.
Especially John DeLorean. I'll just tell you that. Hello, John DeLorean fans. My dad was a lot stronger than John DeLorean. Never thought about it. But
So the business idea. So you're sitting in a dealership one day, and then all of a sudden you have an idea.
Well, no, not necessarily. I wanted to get out of that world for a while.
Okay.
And the reason why we gone to one price shopping and all this other kind of crap, and I came up, even though I was young, still been in the, really selling cars, what I consider to be the right way. Now, not saying it is today. Now, now things have changed to where we're at today. So they went to this. Everybody's just experimenting because we're in a terrible time of economy. And I thought, you know what? I'm sick and tired of fighting this kind of stuff right here. We're not making any real money these days, and the economy's tight. Service has gotten slow. Parts have gotten slow because of that. Body shop was, going to be as many wrecks as you're going to have. They're going, they'll stay good. Used cars were kind of okay, and interest rates were getting high again. Now, today we think interest rates are high when they're 4.5%. Well, you're talking about 12.5%, 13%.
Right.
And that's a good credit. So. I thought, well, I'll just take a break. I knew Dale Earnhardt, called him on the phone, said, hey, buddy.
Now we're talking about Dale Earnhardt Sr.
Yeah.
The right, yeah.
Yeah. And I said, man. Yeah, the man. And I said, hey, buddy, I said, do you mind if I come to work for you for a while? And he said, yeah, I guess. I said, well, yeah. I said, can I fly over and talk to you? So I flew over. Well, they introduced me to Hank Jones. So I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what this is all about, but we'll see. So they said, what? I said, what you got in mind? They said, well, we got a T-shirt and hat business we think you'd be good in. And maybe bring Chevrolet license in. I'm like, huh. I said, well, I'm thought more like I'd be on the sports marketing sponsorship side of this deal, And they're like, no, not really. We already got all that covered, but this business is good business. So I said, well, what the hell? I want to do something different. I want to be around, Dale, and I want to be around racing, and be up close and personal with that because I was a racer. I already had race cars. I already had race boats. I'd already raced everything you could race from the time of 14 years old, actually, my first racing, till as a matter of fact, I even had dirt race cars, wing modifieds, all that stuff. Raced everything you could race.
Right.
Won everything you could win with them. And matter of fact, he won a Sunbelt Championship, and that's Dale liked that a lot, knowing that I did that. So, and I've been with him a bunch of races and been in victory lane with him on several occasions, and so that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to get into that if I couldn't be in the retail car world. So we got there for a while,
and they. I mean, it's funny to me now because you look at. I mean, think of Dale Earnhardt merchandise business, and how lucrative it is, and still even to this day. And at the time, you were sitting there going, "Oh, I don't know about this."
Right.
It's like.
Yeah, because merchandise wasn't big back then like it is today.
Well, no, it was huge.
It was big. Okay.
We were selling as many T-shirts a year as Michael Jordan.
No kidding.
Well, and that's what I thought. That's how the story went. Is they might have passed you a piece of paper that kind of showed how much you were going to be. You know, it's like, well, here's what you're dealing with right here, and it had a dollar figure on it. That was his T-shirt and hat business, and Steve was like, okay, well, this is a little bit different. I thought it was going to be.
So, yeah, so you fell into this.
Yeah, well, I'm like, well, no, not quite, but close. So yeah, to Justin's point, I said, I'm thinking, man, really, T-shirts, hats? I mean, seriously, I'm thinking, how much money can you make on 12? Back then, we retail for like $12,
right? Yeah.
And I said, Dale, shit, I mean, y'all just give me stuff for free. I said, well, I don't need. Does people actually buy this stuff? Because I never went souvenir area. I go to the races and I just be with them in the garage area, the whole weekend. And he said, yeah, you'd be amazed. So he slides me what Justin said. He slides me their financial statement. And I looked at it, I go, damn, I ain't never seen a car dealership make that kind of money before, So I said, well, yeah, I'll give it a try. So they actually had me go to bring a Chevrolet license into them. So I ran that, and that grew, and I learned how that was done. And if it wasn't for the truck series, honestly, we would have never had this business you're sitting here at today.
No kidding.
The truck series is what got this going. So we knew in '94 that they were going to build, or we were going to race trucks. We just didn't know exactly where or how many races or who would be driving or what, some of the things about the truck. So I went to NASCAR. I asked them about the series. They said, yeah, man. I said, you want a license? Heck yeah. I said, oh, that's cool. And I said, I've got Chevrolet going to come with it. That's what they convinced them. Well, I didn't have Chevrolet yet. I had to talk to them. So I go up to Chevrolet. I tell Chevrolet, I got NASCAR in my pocket, but I hadn't officially got in my pocket. So then from there, I went over to Richard Childress Racing, and so they had Skinner in that black 3 truck.
Yep.
And then, so I wound up getting all that mixed together. And Chevrolet was really serious about saying that there will be no competition by me at any NASCAR Cup Series races or Busch Series races. At the time, they were Busch Series. Only go to Truck Series races. That's it.
Yeah.
And these Truck Series races back then were all over America. They were in little bitty racetracks. I mean, we went. We had some racetracks that help 6,000 people. They bring in temporary bleachers or standing room only tickets, whatever they sell. And so we wind up with 8, 10, 15,000 people at some of these races, But I was the only trailer. But Chevrolet restricted me to just that. But they also restricted me to bow tie truck racing only. So no Chevrolet racing, no, none of that stuff.
Right.
Just bow tie truck racing.
So at this point, were you actually printing everything and making everything?
No, we were everything was sourced out.
Okay.
It was my designs, my ideas, our stuff. Built a catalog, decorated a trailer.
So was it Cruisin Sports then?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say, I think we kind of glossed over how we transitioned from working with Dale Earnhardt to the start of Cruisin Sports.
Yeah. So how did that happen? And how did you come up with the name?
That was a beer drinking store. Name. It's not even spelled right.
I love it.
So how did you get Cruisin Sports started?
So we do the truck series coming, as I said. We flew out to Tucson, Arizona, went to the Fairground Speedway out there. They had a little exhibition race they showed. So I was there, all kind of undercover too. Nobody knew that I was, was doing all this putting together, you know, except for Joey Tillman. And Joey Tillman was part owner of Sports Image back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So after we determined that, that Chevrolet and NASCAR and Richard Childress would go with us, that I decided to go ahead and incorporate.
Okay, so that was all while you were still
Sports Image.
With Sports Image, okay.
But I wasn't totally doing it against company, because one of the owners was with me.
Right. Yeah.
And willing to finance part of it.
Right.
The other part wasn't so excited about it when he learned about it. So he matter of fact, he went crazy. He went so damn crazy, he just threatened to kill Earnhardt and me. And I'm not lying to you. They actually,
that's a whole nother podcast.
You're right.
Yeah. And I'm not lying to you, man. They had highway patrol and everything else out watching me. I was advised to keep my windows closed, my curtains closed, all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I started Cruisin Sports actually in the living room of our home in Charlotte, North Carolina, on the floor. I had no desk. We had a vacant room, dining. It was supposed to be a dining room, I guess, and we had nothing in it. And so
I'm pretty sure we just moved into that house too. We weren't in there very long when all that.
No, I'd worked for them for about 2 years.
Okay.
So I'm sitting on the floor, so I don't have any money at all. I mean, I'm just working for Joey Tillman and them, and all the money I'd made from all that other business I had, that was all gone. I mean, however it went away. And but at the end of the day, going back to those businesses, I don't want everybody to think I got some kind of rich out of those things, because when you settle that out, you about owe money back. Everything you thought you had, you owe back. To either the real owner or the IRS or somebody.
Right.
So, and then there was a dry spell where I was trying to figure out which way I was going to go or what I was going to do. Bouncing around, so a lot of money went, or a lot of things went different ways. So back to the Cruisin Sports Day. So we get it all done, decide we're going to do it. I go over to Joey's house, the part owner of Sports Image, now going to be part owner of me. The name, as you said, how did it come about? We're over. Joey loved to drink beer, and so he was sitting there drinking beer. And one night, and I was Friday night, and I was over there, and we're trying to think of a name. So he wanted it to be more generic, not racing, because a lot of stuff back then was some kind of racing tide name. And so he said, let's call it Cruisin Sports. I said, why Cruisin Sports? I said, it sounds like a boat company. And he said, like when the cars crash, they come in and interview him. He said, well, I was just out there cruising around. And I said, all right, whatever, just shit again, we'll do it. So I came up with something at least look racing by putting a checker flag tail.
Right.
So anybody who Googles cruisinsports.com, you'll find out that it looks very 1957 Chevrolet-ish with a checker flag on it. But the Cruisin tie-in is cruising cars or, definitely not boats.
So how did you build a team? You know what I mean? You started out in your house on the floor.
So we started on the floor, and I went and actually bought a little metal desk from, those metal things you buy, cheap things.
Yeah.
Had it in there, and I went and bought a fax machine that's thermal paper that kind of smears when you put your finger on it. It's a big old long sheet. And I bought an electric typewriter, and I had no idea how to type.
Were those back then? I think there were the rolls, weren't they?
Yeah, just roll out, and I mean, you could, no matter if it's 2 hours old, you can still wipe your finger out and smear all ink. So somebody else got a hold of it, they smear it and go, I can't read what's that. Something important, important document from Chevrolet. So so we're there, and my partners decided it'd be better if I moved over here to Nashville area, Hendersonville, to get away from all the commotion. Even though I had Dale's blessing, it was still a lot of heat going on over there because, that one partner was really pissed. Well, Dale winds up buying Sports Image, so all the heat goes away on that. And Dale was kind enough, honest to God. I mean, this is how big of a man Dale Earnhardt was. He always made you earn whatever you're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
So after he bought Sports Image, he calls me one day. He says, hey, man, I got a driver. And I said, for what? And he goes, we're going to build a race truck. I'm going to get Ron Horn today to drive. And he said, you know who he is? I said, no. He's a good driver out of California. And I said, oh, hell, I'm more than happy to take him. He's driving for you. So now I had Skinner and Hornaday and, Dale's blessing and Richard Childers' blessing. Well, then Mr. Hendrick comes along, and they had Jack Sprague and Ricky Hendrick before he got killed. And so I had all these guys, right? And so it just, I had the field covered. We won everything there was to win. I don't know if a Dodge truck or Ford truck, won but 2 or 3 races the whole season, so we dominated with Chevrolet.
Steve.
So to answer your question, though, about getting started. So I move over here, and I'm in a vacant building over here that's a little small, rundown, wore out, that Kenny Rogers actually owned the Entertainer.
Really?
Kenny Rogers owned it. My office used to be a wash stall where, wash cars, because he's a car collector. This was their car shop. And so this thing was like 4,500 square feet, wasn't that big, and we had to have offices, had to have warehouse, had to do a big business out of it, had really no parking lot, had a full-blown, tractor trailer outside. They went to races and nowhere to park it. Had storage pods eventually rented. The person I hired that started the company with me, though, or I shouldn't say started it. She was my first employee, was Amy Green, eventually. And so she walked in from high school, and she says, I don't know what you do here, but I need a job. And I said, well, I'm not sure what I'm doing here yet either. I said, well, let's you bring it. At the time, again, now I'm back on the floor because my metal desk was in Charlotte.
It got left to Charlotte.
Moved here. So I'm on the floor with a phone jack. Yeah, with a jack plugged in the wall that I didn't even know the phone system worked. I found a phone in the closet, plugged it in. It went buzzes. I'm like, no, I go, this ain't call. So I sat on the floor and did the same thing as I was doing back in Charlotte. We built a business out of that, though.
Wow.
We had to order everything from scratch. I mean, the racking, the goods, the crate, the art, get the goods in.
Right.
And we wrote everything by hand back then. There wasn't any computers.
Right.
Wasn't any email. Wasn't none of this kind of stuff. Wasn't no cell phones, none of that crap. We're handwriting dealer orders, handwriting picking tickets, handwriting, all the billing, everything.
What a great first episode. I had so much fun sitting down in Nashville with Steve and his son Justin Perkins from Cruisin Sports that we couldn't get it all in 1 hour, in one episode. So we stretched it out to 2 episodes, and in the next episode, I asked Steve, I said, have you always been a leader? Were you a born leader? Or did you learn how to be a leader? If you enjoyed episode number 1, episode number 2 is going to be even better. I promise you that. And I want to let everybody know that you can choose a platform to listen to the Outstanding Life podcast, like Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud, and Player FM. Don't forget, now you can donate on PayPal, and you can support on Patreon and support once a month. You can go to motivationalcowboy.com. This is Johnny D, the Motivational Cowboy, thanking each and every one of you for listening to the Outstanding Life podcast. And until next time, be safe, have fun, and have yourselves an outstanding day.
Outstanding Life is a Soul Bridge Studio production.